Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me, as always, is your other co-host, John. John, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Things are great. I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. Things are, it's nice weather outside. I got my fiance here, which is
So
great.
exciting.
Yeah, man. I've been out of town for a long time, and obviously, trying to get in and do these pods. And it's been good. There was a very exciting game. Clearly, obviously, between Oregon and Penn State. That was an awesome Big Ten Big Ten championship game. Really exciting, very evenly matched, and I'm really looking forward to talking about that as well. So, it's good, dude. Yeah, tonight, going to a friend's house and gonna have some home cooked dinner, which is really exciting about that. And then
exciting.
And tomorrow, going out, having a date night, going to dinner here in Germantown in Nashville. So that'll be fun, man. It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to ask, do you know what's on the menu tonight? Or is it going to be a surprise?
It's all I know is there's steak, but I don't know.
That's a good start.
Yeah, it's a good start. But then I know last year when they did this, because we came through here and stayed here too, last year when I went through, and it's all like home cooking, Southern style, so it's just like it's supposedly delicious. So yeah, and so we're looking forward to it. It's my buddy's cousin's house, and he's like this like 4-time Grammy award winning like producer, like artist, like so he's got some I didn't go last year, I wasn't able to, but some big house like 30 minutes outside of town, so it should be cool, man.
Impressive. Very cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Well, I am broadcasting live from your house.
Yeah, that's funny. That's amazing.
So yeah, John has me. John and Ashley, John and the fiance have me watching the dog. So I'm over here doing some work, watching the dog. Dog's asleep right now. So it's been good. Dog seemed happy when I showed up.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so things are going well over here.
I appreciate.
And you've got things really decorated for Christmas. It's festive over here. I like it.
Well, that's good, man. I told my fiance, I was like, you know what? Like since I'm not there, and I am definitely, like the Clark Griswold type of guy for Christmas, man. I take it very seriously when it comes to decorating, and no shame in that either, man. I'm not embarrassed. I think
absolutely not.
I think it's necessary, and so I'm proud of her. I'm glad that you approve. And I'm sure it's amazing. She showed me a bit a couple weeks ago when she first started it, and I'm sure it looks even better now than it did before. So
yeah, it looks great. I just got my Christmas tree earlier this week.
Nice.
So it's got an 8.5-foot Fraser fir.
Nice.
So that thing is massive. It's taken up, and it takes up space. So
love that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Love that.
I'm definitely excited for the season. It is, along with Christmas, of course, we have the college football postseason, which is the most wonderful time of the year.
That it is. Always. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what Johnny Mathis said. That's what I heard. So
exactly. Nice. Right on.
He's referring to bowl season, right?
I assume so.
Yeah.
Like, what else could he have been talking about?
Yeah.
Right on. All right. So we got to get back in and review a very exciting Big Ten championship game. But first of all, let's do a little, take a couple notes here on some things that have happened. We have Purdue hired a football coach.
Yeah.
So we have the newest head coach at Purdue is Barry Odom from UNLV. Now, Barry Odom had a fairly successful stint at Mizzou. He was fired after having a mediocre year in 2019, but he did pretty well up until then. And then, has had a very successful run at UNLV now. And obviously UNLV played in the Mountain West Championship game, which they lost to Boise State the other night. So it's an interesting hire. They went with a defensive guy again, a guy who is a defensive coordinator by trade. So I'm really fascinated to see how this turns out. John, any initial thoughts on the Barry Odom hire at Purdue?
I mean, I think you and we talked about it obviously before, and we've talked about it, before when the Ryan Walters firing happened, about their decision to go away from their identity and what has worked so well at Purdue of having these offensive-minded head coaches. And as we've seen throughout the Big Ten and other places, when they decide to go against what has worked for so many years and what they've recruited for and what seems to work and function in those programs, it starts to fall apart. And we saw that with Ryan Walters. Obviously, Odom is a good coach.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll prove us wrong, but I'd be nervous. I think you and I also discussed whether or not they're going to be bringing their offensive coordinator with the go-go offense there, which has worked very well at UNLV. But it's still, you just never know. I never thought that Ryan Walters would fail as miserably as he did. I knew he'd struggle, but after how well he did at Illinois, I just assumed that he would have improved. Let's just say that his first year wasn't a surprise, but this year was dreadful. And but you know what? Like, some guys just aren't meant to be head coaches. Some people are just meant to be better or are better at being coordinators. And Ryan Walters seems to be that kind of guy. So we'll see, man. It's a risk again, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, at least they hired a guy who's been a head coach this time. The
That
Ryan
is
Walters hire, I always thought was not going to work because to me, a coordinator hire is what you do at a helmet school when you're trying to reload schematically, not rebuild, right?
Yeah.
But when you have to rebuild the talent and the culture and get everybody going the same direction and doing all that stuff, like, you need a guy who's been a head coach.
Yep.
And at least now Barry Odom has been a head coach. He did it at Mizzou, did pretty well, ultimately got fired, but, had his moments, and then has done really well at UNLV.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that concerns me is I just watched a clip, and it's just a clip. Could mean nothing. It could be like when Deshaun Foster embarrassed himself at Big Ten Media Days, we all were like, ooh, look out. But then Deshaun Foster, in the second half of this year, got UCLA playing better.
Yep.
And he seems like he's on a good footing. So I'm not saying that this makes Barry Odom a failure, but I saw some footage from his first team meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of like, well, this program, has been competing for championships recently, and we're going to do it again. So just know that the plan is that we're going to win soon. And I was like, dude, where is the juice? Where's the juice? You are taking over a Big Ten football team. Mm-hmm. You should have steam rising off your head. Like, you should be ready to run through a wall. Like, I get some guys just aren't wired that way, right?
Yeah.
Some guys aren't wired that way. And it's just not who they are, but it always makes a bad impression.
Yes.
It always makes a bad first impression, right? Mm-hmm. It's like everyone loves, Dave Aranda at Baylor and his schematic, like, whatever. But like, when he talks, you're just like, dude, you're so bland. So bland. Like Paul Christ, and like, I think of the guys who are not great at talkers, but can still coach. Yeah. So hopefully Barry Odom is one of those guys. I think it's going to be really hard because he doesn't just have to recruit. He doesn't just have to build a culture and a football team. He needs to raise a bunch of NIL.
Yeah.
Because Purdue had their two best players walk out the door last year. And right now he's got a bunch of guys in the portal.
Yeah.
Bunch of really good players. And he needs those guys to stay. So I don't know if he was promised a certain amount of NIL from Purdue or what, but like, he needs to go to Thieneman and Karloftis
and Claire.
Yeah. And he needs to get those guys. He needs to talk those guys, do whatever it takes to talk those guys into staying. Because if they all walk out the door, then Purdue's going to be 1-11 next year again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at that point, maybe you can bounce back. But like, in this new day and age, I don't know, man. You don't want the bottom to fall all the way out. It used to be bottom falls out, you get 3-4 years, blah, blah, blah. But Purdue just fired Ryan Walters after 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. And that's just the way it is across all of college football now. Like, everybody with the transfer portal and NIL, the expectations are a lot higher, and you need results a lot quicker. And because you can, obviously, we've seen a lot of programs be able to do that in a short period of time. And, within year one, it's happened.
Indiana and Arizona State. both in the playoff, both.
Yeah.
Not historically or even recently successful football programs on any level.
Nope. So you better produce. People got to be able to do that. And in a way, it's like you think of some of the coaches. I mean, even, I guess for us, using PJ Fleck, who's been at Minnesota now a long time. But if he were to, be a brand new head coach this year and, by next year, if he wasn't able to produce and win at least 6-7 games, I think, then he'd be out the door as well. But thankfully, he's also been able to utilize the transfer portal pretty well. But
he's been really good with the portal, yeah.
But he's lucky that he's also, I think in some ways, he's really lucky that he's been there as long as he has too. Because after last year, who knows? He may have already, been put on a short leash. Like that's just the way it is now. In especially in conferences like the Big Ten and the SEC, you just don't get that. That grace anymore. So
yeah, PJ and Mark Coyle, the AD, have a really tight relationship, and I think in this day and age, you get fewer of those really close AD coach relationships, and the ones who have them should think twice before they walk away from, from having that kind of security, knowing you can have a bad year here or there, and you're not going to be out on your butt. Because other coach, because he had earned a lot of equity with 2019 and 21 and 22, and so then when last year or when 2023 didn't go well, nobody was out. There weren't any rumors. There wasn't any, it was, we're all in on PJ Fleck, and he bounced back. And this year wasn't perfect, but he bounced back and had a better year this year. Winning conference record, all that kind of stuff. So.
So hopefully Odom can, establish himself and at least, if he can win 5 or 6 games next season, I'd say that's, an improvement.
Dude, if he can win 4 games next year, let's be real. If he can go 4-8, I would call that a real improvement, like a serious improvement.
Well, he's got a proven track record. And like you said, being a head coach, I think is going to help enormously. And so he knows how to do this. And hopefully, if he can bring that, his offensive coordinator along with him, which seems a little unlikely considering UNLV will also be looking for a new head coach, and he seems like a likely candidate. Or
he is Brennan Marion, the OC. So that's the other thing, man. If I were Purdue, if I'm hiring Barry Odom, I am only hiring him if Brennan Marion's coming with. If you have like a 2-year contract locked in, guaranteed. I don't think Brennan Marion is probably coming with. It seems like he's either going to get a head coaching job or he's going to get a coordinator job somewhere else. But if they can bring him with, that would be a big deal because he's been fantastic offensively, and obviously Barry Odom knows what to do with a defense.
Yeah. We'll see, man. We'll be keeping tabs on it. That's for sure.
Absolutely. But I'm glad it's good that Purdue made a hire. So now he can go to all those guys who got in the portal and hopefully talk them into getting out of the portal and just staying as, remaining as Purdue Boilermakers, because the success of next season starts with Purdue. It starts with making sure those guys don't leave. Because if those guys leave, next year is going to be like this year was, no matter what you do. Doesn't matter how well he recruits or what kind of quarterback he gets out of the portal or whatever. Like if those guys all walk out the door, Thieneman and Claire and Karloftis, if he loses all those guys, it's going to be tough next year.
Yep, we'll see.
Right on. All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about the transfer portal, John.
Yeah, we'll touch on a few major ones anyways. Obviously there's a lot going on right now, but there's a couple.
Yeah, we're not going to go in depth right now. Like we'll do a more in-depth transfer portal episode at some point, probably once we get past bowl season. And the playoff. Like once that's all in the rear view, we'll do an episode where we really talk about the big changes in the transfer portal. But we're going to cover them as they go and talk about things a little bit as they happen. And this year supposed to be or was the starting quarterback at Wisconsin for a few games. Tyler Van Dyke is back before getting injured. Is back in the transfer portal. Looks like he's headed somewhere else for his last year of eligibility. So not a surprise. Wisconsin, they couldn't take a guy coming off an injury and risk his injury wrecking their season twice. That's kind of what happened to Utah with Cam Rising, where Utah tried to ride Cam Rising the last 2 years and he couldn't get healthy. And I think Wisconsin, from what I've heard from people close to the program, like our buddy Scooby, is that they, are looking elsewhere for a quarterback, and that they might be looking more for kind of a dual threat kind of guy.
Okay.
Now that they're committed to running the ball again.
I feel like that's a smart move.
Yeah.
It's worked well there before. I mean, they had, I guess this was years and years ago when Russell Wilson was a lot more mobile.
Yeah.
But
that 1 year of Russell Wilson, though, that was special. It was just the 1 year. It felt like more when we were watching it.
It really did. It did. It took years off of my life anyways.
Yeah.
But
I don't think I've ever been as down bad going into an Axe game as when we had Brewster and they had Russell Wilson.
Oh, it was terrible.
That was like, those are the true dark ages.
Yeah. Glad we're not there.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have the Axe now. But yes.
Yes.
Yeah, how the tables have turned. So but yeah, I feel, it's too bad, because TVD clearly has a lot of talent. There's so much potential there, and he's just never really been able to showcase it as much as I think as, he's wanted, or obviously, his coaches have as well. I hope he can find a good landing spot somewhere where he's going to be able to, and I hope he can stay healthy, man.
Yeah, that's the main
really
thing.
Too bad. Yeah.
Because he's good enough to play and do damage somewhere. He just has to stay healthy.
Yeah. But, now Wisconsin going out looking for another quarterback. And, I'm sure they'll get someone who's good. They always seem to do that. Just we'll see if next year they can manage to stay healthy, or if they can find a guy that isn't so inconsistent. I mean, I know Mordecai was a little inconsistent, even TVD.
Mordecai was super inconsistent.
Yeah.
And TVD, we only got to see two games in a quarter.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. Yeah.
So,
but he was inconsistent in his previous spots.
Yeah. But now that they're going to be running the ball again, I think it is wise. I think that's a smart decision to go with a more mobile quarterback, and
absolutely. You look at how much better Iowa was this year with Brendan Sullivan versus when they had Cade McNamara or somebody else at quarterback, and it's I do really think that having a dual threat, if you're going to run the ball, and Iowa and Wisconsin kind of never do this, so like good for Fickle for being like, because I've always been like, hey, if you're going to run the ball, have a dual threat quarterback.
Yeah.
And Minnesota a lot of times did, especially under Jerry Kill.
Yep.
Always had a dual threat quarterback. And I think that helps the running game.
Yep.
Because it's numbers in the box. You have to account for the quarterback. You can't just abandon him and focus on the running back. So, I'm kind of surprised that, Iowa did once with Brad Banks and then never recruited another dual threat quarterback again. And Wisconsin kind of did it once with Russell Wilson and then never recruited a dual threat quarterback ever again. So maybe they can get a dual threat quarterback who's pretty good, and that, they can go from, being really anemic offensively this year to being able to run the ball consistently next year, which is what they're going to need. If they're going to turn it around and do better than 5-7 next year against what's a really tough schedule.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier for them, man. It really doesn't.
Oh man, that Badger. We won't. I mean, it's not the offseason yet, but that Badger 2025 schedule, that's tough.
Yeah,
it's real tough.
I do not envy them. That's for sure.
No, they gotta go to Tuscaloosa, and it only escalates from there.
Yeah, they're gonna have to, and after what they've lost in the portal already too. I mean, they're gonna really have to hit it hard and get some key players, because it's it's imperative just to even go 6-6 next year, to find some real difference makers, which they can. I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, Fickle's recruiting really well.
Yeah,
the retention, is not been as good. The 2023 class, I think there are only 4 recruits left from it.
Yeah,
who are still at Wisconsin. That's
wild. That's
not sustainable. Yeah. Like, you can have that happen once and be like, okay, we're gonna overcome this, but like that can't happen again. Like every class you need, when you have a recruiting class, you sign 25 guys. You need like 10 of those guys to turn into starters, like at least minimum, right? Or else, 8 or 10 in every class. And otherwise you get into trouble, if you can't get that many contributors. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at Wisconsin. It'll be really interesting to see where Tyler Van Dyke ends up.
Yeah.
Will it be another power conference school, or maybe does he think, hey, maybe I should go to Tulane or something, or go somewhere in the group of 5 where, maybe the defensive linemen aren't as good, and you're
Yeah.
not going to get hit. And when you get hit, it's not going to be quite as bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like show what he can do. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. I'm not saying he doesn't have the talent. I think he has the talent to play power conference level, but he might be a better fit just to keep him healthy at like a good group of 5 school. You know, I think of somewhere like Liberty where they out recruit their opponents a lot and, you know, and can like, and can protect the quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the biggest thing, Tyler. Van Dyke, he needs to go somewhere where he's going to have weapons to throw to and people who can protect him.
Yeah. Well, best of luck to him. And I hope, again, like I said, hopefully this isn't like an injury thing that is just, it continues to get re-aggravated and, you know, has to force him into, you know, early retirement. I hope he's able to play and finish out his career for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with you. And then, you know, folks, we usually talk in hard facts on this show. We want to present to you things as realistic as they are, but sometimes we like to get into rumors because rumors are fun.
Yeah.
And they may or may not happen. We should come up with like a sound bite for rumors.
Yeah.
That to differentiate them from when we're talking about facts
Sure.
or takes, which are all basically the 3 kinds of things we do on this show. But there's a rumor about Dylan Raiola, John. And what is that rumor? You want to tell everybody?
Well, there is a college football beat writer who has said that there is rumors, and again, only rumors, that Dylan Raiola is looking at transferring, and I guess Miami is the school I heard. Which is very interesting. I highly, highly, highly doubt it, that it will happen. But even if it's a rumor that he's just looking, and if that part is even true, that he's thinking about it, it's nerve-wracking, man. It really is. And
I mean, Nebraska's other guys leaving, Kalen, the other quarterback. So like they need Raiola to stay.
Yeah, and talk about another team that's really suffered here from transfers leaving. You know, obviously Emmett Johnson decided to come back, so that's a big win.
Totally.
That's huge for Nebraska. But still, you know, it's going to be an interesting offseason again for the Huskers. Although I will say, you know, making it to a bowl game is, after 8 years of not being there, is something that should be, you know, appreciated and you know, you should be grateful for at this point in time. I've seen some complaining about where they went to go play, and I think that's
and remind people, where is Nebraska going to play?
They're going to go to the Pinstripe Bowl.
Okay, so that's not terrible. That's not terrible.
No, I mean, look.
I mean, dude, they could have been in Detroit.
Exactly. You could be in Detroit, and I get it. Look, man, the Pinstripe Bowl, we played there recently, and it's not like, you know, playing on a baseball field is not fun.
No, it's not the best.
But you get to go to New York City. You get to be in Yankee Stadium. Like, there's definitely some cool, unique aspects to it that I think, like, especially Husker fans, as you know, with the way they travel, I think could be a lot of fun. And you know, especially for the players, man, I think, you know, a lot of those kids have maybe never even been there. So I think that's
probably not. Yeah.
Too. And just for the basic fact of that you are in a bowl game, man.
Yeah.
Like, for the first time in 8 years. So
instead of being worried about like which bowl game you're in, I'd just be like, I hope we end up with a winning record, because if they lose the bowl game, then after all this hype, they still end up with a losing record. So I think there's a lot on the line for Nebraska, actually, like from like a program perception. Where are they at right now going into 2025? I actually think it matters for Nebraska whether they win this bowl game or not.
I think so too, man.
I think you get a lot more momentum feeling in the program if you win.
Yep. I totally agree, man. And so hopefully, you know, for their sake, they are able to pull this one out, and it'll help bode well for maybe keeping retaining some guys, and helping for some recruiting in the future, and, you know, maybe keep Dylan Raiola around. We'll see.
Yeah, which we think they will.
Yes,
we think they will.
Yes, we do.
But man, if Dylan Raiola decides to transfer, I might do a solo. You're on the road, so you can't do that. But I might do a solo emergency pod.
Yeah, I think you might have to,
because like then all of a sudden it's going to be Nebraska is going to need a quarterback in the portal, and that would be, you know, really interesting for sure to see how the dominoes fall there.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. Should we move on to this Big Ten title game?
Yeah, well, before we get to that, I just want to announce one more time, or not one more time, for the first time here. If you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Podcast Addict. You can also find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike here at Alibaba26 and me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can also email us, We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com.
Awesome. All right. So at the end of the day, when the smoke cleared and the final whistle rang out, the score was the Oregon Ducks 45, the Penn State Nittany Lions 37. I got to start out by patting myself on the back. This game was a little higher scoring than I anticipated, but I had Oregon winning this game by 8, and the Ducks won by 8. So good for me. My picks have been pretty good lately, although I fully whiffed on my pick for UNLV to upset Boise State in the Mountain West title game. But now I'm thinking, was Barry Odom already talking to Purdue? Not focused in on that game. Just saying.
So it's his fault.
I blame Barry. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, back to the Big Ten title game. The Nittany Lions and Ducks traded blows in the first quarter. We had TD Oregon, field goal Penn State, TD Oregon, TD Penn State. Score was 14-10. However, then Oregon scored 2 touchdowns in the first 5 minutes of the second quarter to extend the lead to 28-10. And I'm going to be honest, John, at this point, I thought the game was over. I thought it was over. I thought Oregon had them. It was 28-10. I didn't think they were going to be able to dig out of that hole. I thought for Penn State to be in this game, they had to be ahead and work from a positive game script. Yep. But Penn State hit back with 2 TD drives of their own. Got a stop in between. And Oregon's Atticus Sappington hit a field goal to end the first half with a score Oregon 31, Penn State 24. That missed first half field goal haunted Penn State a bit. I feel like, they could have been just down 4 and that would have changed things a little bit. But then down 2 TDs, Penn State rallied. They scored a 4th and 10 touchdown on a pass from Aller to Wallace to cap a 13-play TD drive. The Nittany Lions needed a stop to have a chance to win, and they got it. They forced a 3-and-out, got the ball back. They had fantastic field position around midfield. Penn State had 2 minutes left. So what they had to do was bleed some clock, score a TD, get the 2-point conversion, push it to overtime. Mm-hmm. By the way, when Penn State scored a touchdown down 14 and went for 2, I was screaming at my television.
Yeah.
There are times to go for 2 in that situation, but against this Oregon D with that defensive line was not one of those times, in my opinion. Penn State should have been down just 7 at the end of the game, not 8, if not for that weird decision by James Franklin. So I get the idea of it. The idea is that if you get it, then you only need 7 to win. And if you don't get it, then you can still get it and tie when you score your next TD. But that means you have to have confidence you have a 2-point conversion play that will work. And against that Oregon D line, I just think you got to kick the PAT, and then you only need 7 to tie or 8 to win at that point. And then if you're going to go for 2, go for it for the win when you've got them on their heels, Yeah. So it just seemed like a weird, unnecessary decision that kind of gave Oregon, Oregon went from being like, oh crap, we could lose this game, to even if they score, they still have to get the 2, which psychologically is a very different place to be.
Absolutely.
So I think that was a mistake by Franklin. I think it was a weird, unnecessary decision. But it didn't matter because Penn State didn't score a TD. Instead, with 2nd and 1 near midfield, with the whole playbook at their disposal, James Franklin and Andy Kotelnicki decided they were going to have Drew Aller throw an ill-advised bomb into coverage, which was picked off by Oregon DB Nico Reed. Reed read it perfectly and made a great play on the ball. This was not the time to throw a bomb, James Franklin. First of all, you don't need to risk that throw. You have plenty of time left, and it's only 2nd and short. Also, you don't even want to score that fast in that situation.
No.
Think if they did score there. The faster you score, the more time you're leaving for Heisman candidate QB Dylan Gabriel to march down the field for the winning TD or field goal. So throwing it downfield was a mistake on multiple levels. Mm-hmm. They needed to burn more clock to make sure that Oregon didn't have too much time left. And also, it was just a low percentage, high risk throw. It was just a bad It was just another bad decision. And Franklin just has a way of making unnecessary decisions that make it harder for his team to win. And the closer and more important the game, the weirder the decision he makes. It's like when he tried to do a quick punt with Tyler Warren, the tight end, against Minnesota, and it went like 15 yards, and Minnesota got good field position when you could have pinned them inside their own 10 in a one-score game. And I was just like, what are you doing, man? And this was the same thing. I was just like, what are you doing? Like, why did you go for 2 there? And then why are you throwing why are you throwing a bomb downfield? That's like we only have a few seconds left. We got to get this kind of move. Not like we have 2 minutes and it's 2nd and 1. Oh, James Franklin, man. Penn State had a couple timeouts. You know how many rushing yards? John, Penn State had 297 rushing yards in this game. They ran for 300 yards pretty much in this game.
Insane. Yeah.
And when Penn State needed to close the game, you decide to throw a low percentage fade route in a double coverage? Run the ball. Run the ball. What are we doing? Or if you're not going to run it, fake a handoff and throw you like a 5 or a 10-yard pass and just keep the sticks moving.
Yep.
And just keep the momentum going and keep the clock running.
Yep. I mean, it's wild, man. And again, it's just like you said, like this is a James Franklin, another loss from just stupid decisions and stupid mistakes. Obviously
another one.
The two, the not counting for the last interception, but the other turnover by Drew Aller did not help anything either. It was just the lack of being able to protect the ball at key moments, and that just put it away, man. I don't know what else to say about James Franklin at this point. I mean, they're lucky they've got they're in a great position for the playoff.
Yeah. We'll talk about that, but they are in a great position for the playoff.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
But still, you're fighting back, you're regaining momentum. And like you said, to just try to cut that clock down or try to go for the score without having ran the clock down is just a stupid mistake as well. On top of that, not only just the play call, but trying to score early. And I think
it's just bad game management.
It really is. And that's what he's notorious for, man.
Yes.
That's what he's been doing for years.
Yeah.
So,
and he needs an analyst who just tells him what to do from play to play.
Well,
and that guy should wear a bright white, like with blue letters, like James's, just like Franklin's decision guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he should be in Franklin's ear. So when he's like when something comes up, he can be like, hey James, we can't do this right now.
Yeah, no.
We gotta no. And James like, what? Like, no. You gotta do. But these guys are all egomaniacs, and he thinks he knows what he's doing because of all the success he's had, and he is very successful, and he is a great coach. But he just gives it away. He just gives it away. He doesn't even make the other team earn it too many times. He just gives it away.
Yep.
And to be fair, before we go any further on me and our frustrations with James Franklin, I don't want to take anything away from Oregon.
No.
They played a great game. Dylan Gabriel, Heisman caliber QB, was 22 of 32, 283 yards, nearly 9 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks, QBR of 95.4. That was the game you wanted from your Heisman candidate QB with a conference title game and playoff seeding on the line. Mm-hmm. Really impressive stuff from Gabriel. The Oregon rushing attack was effective as both Jordan James and Noah Whittington had over 80 yards rushing on about 5 yards per rush. But it was the passing game that fueled Oregon most, as it usually does. Dude, wide receiver Tez Johnson, man.
Dude.
He is completely unstoppable. I mean, just fierce. 181 yards on 11 catches for 16.5 yards per catch and a touchdown with a long catch of 48 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Where would this offense be without Tez Johnson? I don't think they win this game without him.
I agree.
I don't think they do.
Yep.
Absolutely not. So, because, they did a really good job covering the other receivers. Terrence Ferguson at tight end and wide receiver Trayshawn Holden combined for 5 catches for 51 yards. So it was Tez Johnson's show.
Yeah.
And along with the key interception, Ducks DB Nico Reed also had 3 tackles and 2 passes defended. So nice game for him. For Penn State, QB Drew Aller was good, but not great. He completed 20 of 39 passes, 226 yards, just 5.6 yards per attempt, 3 TDs, but 2 costly picks for a QBR of 81.8. Both Penn State running backs were extremely effective. Katron Allen at 114 yards on 9 yards per rush and a TD. Well, Nicholas Singleton had 105 yards on just 10 carries for 10.5 yards per rush. Once again, for reasons best known to James Franklin, Katron Allen got more touches than Nick Singleton did. And I think that's a massive error. Look, Katron Allen is plenty good, but there were Katron Allen runs last night that Nick Singleton could have broken off for much bigger gains. He's much faster than Katron Allen is, and he's just as tough running the ball. So if it had been him toting the rock, I get needing to use 2 backs. You want to keep your running backs fresh, but you need to give your lesser back. You can't be giving your lesser back more touches than your more talented back. That seems crazy to me. This is a title game. You get a break of 2 weeks after this. Singleton, or 3 weeks if you get the bye, Singleton had the speed to compete with Oregon's fast skill players, and I just won't ever get that decision. I think Singleton should have gotten the lion's share of the touches. Well, Allen should have had like 5 to 7 carries, and that's it. I don't get it. I think you have to ride in a game this big. I think you have to ride Nicholas Singleton a little more. So I think that was a mistake too. Superstar tight end Tyler Warren had a nice day with 7 catches for 84 yards. But honestly, I don't know why they weren't targeting him on that last drive when they threw the pick.
Yep.
I also think Warren should have had a few more balls thrown his way over the course of the game. I do. Wide receiver Harrison Wallace was decent in this one with 4 catches for 59 yards and a touchdown. Nicholas Singleton at 43 yards and 4 catches, while Katron Allen managed just 15 yards on 3 catches. So again, Singleton is more effective, but barely got more touches in the passing game than Allen did. So I swear Katron Allen knows where Franklin buried the bodies. He just does, because otherwise I just don't understand. It's not that he's a bad player, but he's just not close to Nicholas Singleton. And Penn State linebacker Kobe King had a nice day with 10 tackles and a tackle for loss. So John, what did you think about this Big Ten championship game?
I mean, it was a lot of fun to watch. It was really fun to watch Penn State fight back, but also, like we've already touched on, insanely frustrating at the same time. I think both you and I, as much as we're like happy to have Oregon here in the Big Ten, we were both rooting for Penn State, just being that they put in their time and earned their spot here within the conference. Not that Oregon won't, and obviously now, being where they're at, they very well might and bring the Big Ten a national title. Who knows? Which we will be happy for. That would be great. But it's again, you're seeing this a lot of production from both the passing game and obviously the running game, like with Penn State, and defensively. I mean, Abdul Carter was an absolute freaking menace, dude. I mean, watching that guy run east to west and catching Tez Johnson and stopping him on a lot of those passes out to the flats that just really didn't work that well a couple times, but it didn't even work that well. But you watched him get off his block and still chase down the receiver and be the first one there. And it was incredible. I mean, that guy is just a freaking beast on another level. So
yeah, he's special.
Yeah. So defensively, it looked like Penn State played better. And also, overall, I think they were more balanced offensively. But like you said, man, when you can't stop Tez Johnson and Dylan Gabriel, it's just they're going to make you pay. And they have the explosive plays, just as we've talked about, too, with Penn State and their inability to have a lot of those. It's a problem, and you're going to get outgunned by a guy with Dylan Gabriel and Tez Johnson. So, in talking about Tyler Warren as well, I do agree. I think that they should have given him more targets. I know he had a couple drops that were pretty bad. One that probably could have gone for 6. But still, man, this is the best player on the field. Like, you don't just go away from that and depend on your wide receivers who are not that great.
No.
And because it's been working for you all season, just going back to Tyler Warren, and now all of a sudden you decide to spread the ball around a little bit more, which obviously Oregon did not do, and it was working wonders.
No, so, Oregon just kept going to their best player.
Exactly.
I don't know why Penn State, when they needed down the stretch, when they had a chance to win the tie or win the game, why they didn't just say, okay, it's Tyler Warren time.
Yep. Yeah.
Because we saw it we've seen it in previous games. You can chase him around for a while.
Yep.
But like eventually the size and strength and speed is too much.
Yeah.
And he doesn't wear down.
No.
He doesn't wear down. So
No.
like he's still accelerating like it's the first quarter and the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I think of that game against Ohio State when it was 4th and 5 and Trace McSorley was playing the game of his life at quarterback for Penn State, and James Franklin decided to call a handoff on 4th and 5 when they were 20 yards from the end zone. And I was just like, of course it didn't go anywhere because of course it didn't.
Yep.
And James Franklin just continues to make, I mean, dude, for him to throw that bomb, I was yelling no at my television before it was picked off. I was like, what are you doing? Like, why would you even throw that? And then it was into double coverage and whatever. And yeah, man, I don't know if I'm Drew Aller, I'm like feeling like my coach didn't like put me in position to make that mistake.
He didn't help you out, man. And Drew Aller was playing great. He
played really well. He played
doing...
almost, man, if you take away one of those picks, they could tie the game. If you take away both of those picks, Penn State wins.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So he was I mean, that was the difference in the game. They had 2 turnovers to 0.
Yeah. It was tough to watch, man. But again, in James Franklin fashion, and I guess like to be a little fair, or not fair. I mean, it didn't change the outcome of the game, and we can't go back and change it. There was like a slight missed, pass interference call on that interception where he was holding the receiver back a little bit from the jersey right around his neck.
Oh yeah, absolutely should have called the PI there.
But things like that get missed, and really,
you can't throw that pass in a double coverage.
Exactly.
You can't throw that in there.
That shouldn't matter.
Unless it's Tyler Warren, and it wasn't Tyler Warren.
Exactly. So either way, you made a mistake. Even with that missed pass interference call, like that, it was a pass that never should have been made. Period.
Yeah.
So,
it was crazy how close this game was. Penn State had 28 first downs to 24 for Oregon. Both were at about 50% on third down. Both went 2 for 2 on fourth down. Both passed the ball and ran the ball well. And it just, it came down to those turnovers and those James Franklin decisions.
Yeah.
I really think that's what it came down to. I mean, Penn State even outgained Oregon. Like not by a ton, but but they didn't, I mean, yards per play, all of it looked really good from Penn State's perspective. Yep. And it's just too bad they decided to throw that bomb when they did, because I'd be really curious to see what happened if they made different decisions and had a chance to tie on a 2-point conversion. I would have loved to see what Andy Kotelnicki pulled out of his bag after failing on 1 2-point and going for the one you need to tie the game. Yeah. I would have been so curious to see what he went with.
Yeah.
But James Franklin didn't allow us that opportunity.
No, he did not.
So yeah. So it's ridiculous. Anything else you want to talk about before we move on from the Big Ten championship game to postseason talk? Because this is the last game of really what counts as, I mean, it's not really the regular season, but I count it. What do you think? Do you think of the Big Ten title game as the regular season or postseason more?
I think it's regular season. I don't know. I mean,
I do too.
It's a mix, but yeah, I think it's still regular season. Postseason isn't until we get to the bowls and obviously the playoff. To me, that's just the way it should be. So
that's where I'm at too.
Yeah. But no, I don't have anything else to add right now. Other than, hey, James Franklin, you have another shot.
You do? You have another shot? We'll talk about it right now. So we'll talk about the college football playoff and switch gears a little bit. The Big Ten had 4 teams invited to participate in the inaugural 12-team college football playoff. That's 1 more than the SEC got, which leads all conferences. So Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti must be smirking to himself over how well things worked out in year 1.
Yep.
So we start off with the team that nobody expected to be here except for Curt Cignetti, the Indiana Hoosiers. They are seeded 10th, and they will play at 7th seeded Notre Dame at 7 p.m. on Friday, December 20th. This one is big. It's not just a playoff game, but it's an opportunity to assert bragging rights for the entire state of Indiana for the foreseeable future. Both Indiana and Notre Dame crushed Purdue. So this is the Indiana State Championship being played at South Bend. My first thought is that IU has the offense to score a bunch of points against Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
My second thought is that Notre Dame has a phenomenal O-line and is 3 deep at running back with big playmakers. And when I say big, I mean physically, these are big human beings.
Yeah.
There could be a lot of points scored in this game.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is that IU's dynamic, balanced offense will keep the Irish on their heels and IU can squeak out a victory. My fear is that Notre Dame will dominate the line of scrimmage. They'll limit Indiana's possessions. Indiana will have 3 and outs on either side of like long Notre Dame run it right up your rear end touchdown drives.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's going to be, and they're just going to get run over. So can IU slow down the Irish running game at all? I think if they want to have a chance to win this game, they have to slow it down at least a little bit at times, or they have to force like 3 turnovers if they can't stop the run.
Yeah. Well, you saw Notre Dame, against USC, and USC was putting up crazy numbers through the air, they still weren't able to stop Notre Dame. And
no, they couldn't stop that running game at all.
Exactly. And after 3 quarters of that, and like you said, with guys just big bruisers like that running at you, you tire out, man. It gets to be too much. Now Riley Leonard, he's an okay quarterback. He's a bit mobile as well, but I don't think there's a lot to fear in the pass game. But just the attrition is going to be what this comes down to. And I think Indiana, has the potential to score enough points to, put this out of reach for Notre Dame, but it's going to be tough, and defensively Notre Dame is solid as well.
Yes.
So I think it's a great matchup. Frankly, it's going to be, watching this electric offense, through the air with Indiana, and then Notre Dame, just the ground and pound type of game, and trying to, milk the clock and just tick those seconds down and hopefully, win the game that way. But, I guess for me, like right now, like I want to go Indiana, but it's really because I'm just like, I just want to see Notre Dame lose, number one. But I want to see this Cinderella season go just a little bit further. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I think it would be amazing to see Notre Dame lose,
oh my goodness,
especially at home against
Indiana.
It would be wild.
You imagine the meltdown among the Notre Dame fan base. I mean, they might burn South Bend to the ground.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm hoping
to lose to a basketball school in their first. This is Notre Dame's first playoff appearance ever.
Yep.
So, if they lost to an in-state quote unquote basketball school, that would be ridiculous. Oh, also, just so everybody knows, we're going to do an in-depth episode on the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do an in-depth episode on all the bowls.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of our 10,000 feet initial thoughts on everything. So if you're thinking, oh, these guys aren't going very in depth, you're right. We're not. We're just kind of introducing them, and we're going to go in depth in our next couple episodes.
Yeah.
So you can look forward to those. Here's my one gripe with this whole thing. The Hoosiers are seeded 10th and Notre Dame 7th. Notre Dame lost to NIU. Indiana lost to Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the Hoosiers should be hosting this game.
I agree.
The Hoosiers should be hosting this game.
100%.
And I just think it's a shame that they're not. And I don't know, Notre Dame, I'm just going to put it out there that a lot of people like to say that you don't make a lot of noise. So I'm putting the challenge out there. Are you going to make any noise at this game? Or is it going to be a wine and cheese golf clap kind of vibe thing? Or are you going to actually show up and make some noise for a college football playoff game? That's what I want to know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, and I've already heard a lot of Notre Dame fans chirping and saying that, if Indiana had to play their schedule, they'd be, 7-5 or 6-6 or whatever. Which
they played service academies and the worst Florida State and Purdue teams in generations.
I know. I
don't want to hear it from Notre Dame. They played, and they're like, well, Army's ranked in the top 25. I was like, you want to see a talent composite of what Army looks like against a Big Ten defensive line?
Yeah.
What that offense looks like against a Big Ten defensive line? Get out of here. Get out of here. Like, Army played so many, or Notre Dame, played so many easier games. They played basically a 3-game season. 4 if you count the one they lost to NIU.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I don't want to hear it. I know Indiana got a good draw in the Big Ten this year. They absolutely did.
Mm-hmm.
But they still had to play all Big Ten teams with Big Ten rosters.
Yeah.
And that's different than playing service academies that don't have NIL.
Yeah.
It just is.
Agreed.
Yeah. And dude, I had somebody going at me. I had friend of the pod, Inside the Pylon, their podcast. He was like, no, when you look at this rankings, it shows how good they are. And this shows how good Notre Dame's opponents are compared to Indiana's opponents who are really bad. And I'm just like, man, I'm sorry. Playing 9 games in the Big Ten is just different than playing an independent schedule with a bunch of like group of 5 teams and stuff.
Agreed.
It's just not the same thing at all. So yeah, he said there was no debate, and I agree. There's no debate.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Now that said, is Notre Dame the favorite in this game? Yeah, and they should be. They have better, they recruit better than Indiana does up to this point. And Indiana, has a lot of players who just went from group of 5 to the Big Ten. Yeah. So yeah, Notre Dame should be favored, but man, I'll tell you, they're vulnerable in that secondary. Mm-hmm. So I think Indiana has a chance. And I also think Indiana has the coaching advantage with Curt Cignetti versus Marcus Freeman. Oh, did you see what Marcus Freeman said when they asked him about Curt Cignetti?
No.
He said, well, I didn't know much about him, so I Googled him.
Okay.
Because Curt Cignetti,
amazing. Google me. Yeah, that's amazing.
So he said, I didn't know much about him. So yeah.
That's awesome. Love
it.
Man.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to the next game. We have Penn State is ranked number 6 and is hosting number 11 SMU on Saturday, December 21st at 11 a.m. This is a fantastic draw for Penn State. SMU has been really impressive, but it's their first year in a power league. They don't have the kind of depth and talent on the line of scrimmage that Penn State has. My hope is that Penn State uses its physical advantage to beat SMU into submission with that running game.
Yeah.
SMU, though, does have a high-powered offense for sure. So my fear would be that Drew Aller throws a few picks and gives SMU short fields. I think it'll take some short fields for SMU to be able to score a lot against that impressive Nittany Lion defense. So what are your initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think Penn State's going to be able to roll through this one pretty easily. I'm not too worried about it. Congratulations, SMU, for getting this far, but I just think the talent deficit is going to be too much, and I think Penn State's going to roll. They're just a tougher team, so I'm really not too worried about this one for Penn State.
No. And so next up, we have number 8 Ohio State hosting number 9.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What should I do about this?
I think I can go through some of these, and if you want me to finish and run through some of these quicks and get my.
Do you want me to just where should I? Yeah, you can talk about Ohio State, Tennessee quick, and I'll run and take her somewhere and come back.
I'll do that. No problem.
Where do I put her exactly?
You can just take her outside. Put her in the backyard.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right.
Yeah, and give her a treat. Sorry, everybody. This is what happens when you get a dog. I'm sure a lot of you understand. When we're, I'm going to move on here to Tennessee and Ohio State, which is I frankly think it's a great matchup. I think Ohio State is going to be out for blood with this one. I think that they have a lot to prove. I know that the line is 7.5 for Ohio State. The over under is 47.5. I think there will be quite a few points scored here, but you got obviously 2 pretty solid defenses, but I got to give the edge to Ohio State as far as defensively. They're just they've been outstanding. I know that they didn't look that great in that Michigan game, but that being a rivalry game, it can always be tough, and it always is, especially between those two teams. Tennessee has a lot to prove though too. I think Tennessee, they want to come through here. They've been so close, and they've been looking better and better after years of just not fantastic football. Let's just put it that way. And so they're finally back on the scene, rising to the occasion to become that the top tier program that they've always fancied themselves to be. So I think having Tennessee back on the big stage in college football, in the college football playoff, is definitely something where they're setting themselves up to want to prove something against a team as tough as Ohio State. But like I said already, Ohio State, they're amazing. As poorly as they played against Michigan, this is a very, very, very talented team, and I think they're going to give it all to Tennessee, and they've got a lot to prove after that in really everybody's eyes, that bad loss against a pretty bad Michigan team.
Humiliating.
Yeah.
Humiliating loss. I mean, the worst loss of the Ryan Day era, to the point where if he does not produce in these playoffs, he's going to get fired.
Yep.
And that's what Ohio State has going for them.
Yeah.
Because he played too conservatively against Michigan. He should have been throwing it, getting it to his skill players, and like getting the job done, you know?
Yeah.
And he didn't throw it to Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka and the rest of Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes. He just didn't throw it to those guys enough.
Yeah.
Ran the ball too much. I don't think Ohio State's going to do that against Tennessee, and here's why. Yeah. Tennessee has a really good defensive line. So you're not going to be able to just run against them, right? So I think Ohio State needs to really focus on the passing game.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have to run enough to keep Tennessee honest, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want but the game plan can't be we're going to come push Tennessee around.
Yeah.
No more of that.
Yeah.
You got Jeremiah Smith, you got Emeka Egbuka, you got Carnell Tate, you got Brandon Innes.
Yep.
You gotta go. You gotta throw the ball, get either short passes, get those guys the ball in space, let them make people miss, or else throw the ball downfield and let them, attack 50-50 balls.
Yeah.
And you gotta go all out, and you gotta do it because I mean, it's gonna be crazy because Ohio State does have a questionable offensive line. They're not gonna be able to run the ball like we think. So I think that's the key. And I want to see Ohio State clicking on all cylinders going into the playoff after that rough and abrupt end of the regular season. Because Ohio State thought they were going to have that rematch with Oregon. Well, guess what? If they beat Tennessee, it's not for the Big Ten title anymore. But if they beat Tennessee, they get that rematch with Oregon.
Yeah. Well, did she stop crying? Did you give her a treat? I know that'll help.
I put her outside.
Yeah.
I did muzzle her because I know she's had some issues with finding stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you bring, when
I can give her a treat when I bring her back in.
Yeah. Well, I'll go grab her now if you don't mind. That'd be great.
What?
I would go grab her now if you don't mind. That'd be great.
You want me to grab the dog now?
Yeah. I feel like there's no fence, so I want her to come back in.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go get her right now.
Sure. She's right out there.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. But I'll keep talking. Well, with this, I think again, like we already talked about, Ohio State and Tennessee, are just like, it's going to be a great matchup. Everybody's looking forward to it. But moving on, we got to some of the bowls here. We're going to talk about Rutgers and Kansas State. The line is 7.5 for Kansas State. The over/under is 51.5. Now with this game, from what I can tell and what I know Rutgers, Kyle Monunga, I think everyone is coming back, all the major players. I have not heard anything of anybody opting out at this time. So I think that bodes well for them, obviously. And Athan's been playing a lot better. I think he looks good. I think it's just like with Athan and with Kyle Monunga playing, I feel good about this offense. Defensively, they've been very inconsistent. And, with K-State, I'm not super familiar. Like we talked about, we're not like going super in depth at this time. So I got to definitely do more research. But I think with having Monunga and Athan back in or not opting out, at least at this time, I think bodes well for that, for Rutgers.
Yeah, dude, it's all about Monunga. If Monunga plays, I like them. K-State is basically another Rutgers.
Yeah.
Only I think Rutgers has, with Monunga, and probably has the best skill player between the two teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that could be a good one. I will also say, hey, before we moved on, if Penn State wins round 1, then they get Boise State, who got a bye.
They've got a great path, man.
Dude, are you kidding me? That is ridiculous. Think of it. Ohio State has to play Tennessee and then Oregon, and they beat Penn State head to head. They got to be so mad at themselves for losing that Michigan game.
Mm-hmm.
But Penn State, man, everything's coming up Nittany Lions.
Yep.
So James Franklin better win 2 games at least. He better win 2 games because he'll never get a better draw than this ever.
No.
Yeah. So that's exciting. And then the Ohio State Oregon potential rematch. Oh man, dude, on a neutral field at the Rose Bowl,
Yeah.
that could be absolutely electric. I'm going to be really excited to get deeper into that one. And then if Indiana beats Georgia or Notre Dame, they get Georgia, which would be a really steep test, but Indiana has earned the right to play in a game like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm super excited to see how they fare. Should we move on to the next bowl game after the guaranteed rate, or anything else you want to say about Rutgers and K-State?
No, there's nothing really else. I like I said, like we already touched on, we'll do more research on this and go a little bit more in depth on all these teams. Right now, I don't have a lot to say about K-State until I do more research. So
yeah. Totally. Next up, we got Las Vegas Bowl, December 27th, Texas A&M and USC. Ooh,
this is good.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun. A&M with the mobile quarterback, and he's just such a jock, and he provides a lot of challenges that way. And then USC, with their kind of new look offense, I think Texas A&M's probably going to be favored in that game. But USC, you want a chance to play on a stage against a named team? Okay, here you go. You want to show us you were better than you showed during the Big Ten season?
Yeah,
here you go. There's a
Jaden
chance
Maiava
to beat a team that was better than you.
Yeah. You want to finally show that Jaden Maiava was the truth and Miller Moss wasn't the guy? Okay, here we go.
Let's see. That'll be interesting to see, man. Oh man. I was just thinking of Mike Elko having multiple weeks, having 3 weeks to get ready for Jaden Maiava.
Yeah.
That could be bad, dude. That could be bad for USC.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe he makes a bunch of progress. Or maybe he comes out and they have a great game plan and he's more accurate than we've seen him be. But that's one, if I'm going to say right now, one where I think the Big Ten could get blown out. I think that's a game where the Big Ten could get blown out.
Yeah, I agree. And I think losing, is it Quentin Joyner now?
Quentin Joyner's going in the portal, dude.
Yeah.
So does that mean and Woody Marks, I don't know if he's going to opt out for the bowl game or not. So
yeah, I haven't heard anything yet about him, but not having that 1-2 punch, man, that could be problematic as well. So,
dude, I can't believe Quentin Joyner is going to walk away from USC when he be the guy next year.
Exactly. It seems odd to me as
Seems super strange and definitely not a good sign for Lincoln Riley.
Yep. Well, as we know, he doesn't want to run the ball. He doesn't want to have a balanced offense more often than not. So,
well, maybe he's scaring his own running backs away.
Could be. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's wild. All right, next up, we have the Pinstripe Bowl, New York City, Yankee Stadium, December 28th, with Boston College and Nebraska. This is interesting. Boston College switched quarterbacks mid-year, and it worked out for them.
Yep.
It's gone pretty well, so that'll be interesting. And then you've got Nebraska, who, after all the hype, after all the preseason accolades, need to win this game to have a winning record.
Yeah.
I think, man, this determines, I don't want to put too much on any bowl game, but to me, this determines if Nebraska can say we're successful or not this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they've had this streak of 8 years of losing records. And you made a bowl game, but if you don't win this game, you have another year of losing records.
Yeah, it'll be a disappointment for sure. I mean, I will argue, I think just getting to a bowl game should be considered a win at this point.
Yes.
It'll diminish it a bit, obviously, but thankfully it's finally just heading in somewhat positive of a direction for them, because I know that their fans are just desperate for that. But yeah, I agree. I think that it will affect the momentum, and I think possible recruiting and transfer, in the transfer portal and everything like that too. If they end up losing to a team like Boston College, so
that'd be a bad loss. I think
it would be. I think so too, and they're favored to win this one.
Yeah, I think Nebraska should come out, and they should come out and play really well, in a game like this. And yeah, you're right. Like you said, they are favored to win by 3.
Yeah.
Next up, we have a game that will be really interesting to see how it. The Trans Perfect Music City Bowl, December 30th, Iowa against number 19 Mizzou. How many quarterbacks does Iowa have in the transfer portal?
What, 2, 3?
It's everybody
3?
except for Brendan Sullivan, right?
Yeah.
So he better not get hurt.
And Caleb Johnson's opting out.
That hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, I see why, because it's not a major bowl game and whatever, but it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of the whole offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Moulton's pretty good, so I guess they can ride him. But man, it's not the same as having Caleb Johnson.
Absolutely, yeah. I got to give the edge to Mizzou in this one if that's the case. If he's out,
it'll be interesting to see who plays quarterback. Kirk Ferentz, man, he's won some bowl games. He's had some really bad bowl games too.
Yep.
Really bad.
Particularly at the Music City Bowl, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I'm going to be really curious to see who plays and doesn't play for Iowa and Mizzou heading into this game because I hope Brendan Sullivan's healthy and can play. Because otherwise, is Iowa going to be down to like a walk-on? You know what I mean? Like it's scary. It's getting real. It's getting real there in Iowa City for sure.
Yep.
All right, next up, we have the ReliaQuest Bowl, December 31st, New Year's Eve, and we've got number 11, Alabama against Michigan, which it just felt like they were like, hey, Alabama and Michigan played in the Rose Bowl last year. Let's put them in a bowl game together, even though Alabama's this awesome team and Michigan, they beat Ohio State, but they went 7-5.
Yeah.
And can't throw the ball at all.
It seems ridiculous. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, come on now. Like, really?
I mean, the line is Alabama by 11.5, and that doesn't seem like enough.
No.
Like I think Alabama could cover that spread in the first quarter.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because they're gonna load up to stop the run, and what's Michigan gonna do? You know?
Yep.
And then on offense, I mean, the one thing I will say on offense is Alabama is somewhat dependent on Jalen Milroe being able to run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And with those Michigan D tackles, I think they could slow down Alabama for a while, stopping their run. But I think Alabama's eventually going to figure out that they can challenge Michigan's DBs downfield. Now, why Ohio State never figured that out, I don't know. It seemed weird. But I don't think that Alabama's going to make that same mistake. Well, I think Alabama's going to throw the ball down the field, and they're going to win, and they're going to beat Michigan that way.
And mind you, this is Kalen DeBoer revenge game.
Yeah, it is. Oh, that's right, because he lost the national title to Michigan last year.
Yep.
I didn't even think about that. Good call. Yep. All right, next up, we have the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, also December 31st, New Year's Eve, with Louisville and Washington. And, man, I don't like how this is setting up for Washington either.
No.
Louisville's a very good team. Washington only went 6-6. And I don't know if you're not paying attention to the coaching carousel, there's a lot of steam behind Bill Belichick to North Carolina.
Which is wild.
Which is crazy. But if he goes to North Carolina, you got to believe that his son is going to come be his defensive coordinator.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So Washington could not only is Louisville the better team or was the better team this year, but Washington could be losing a coordinator right before this game, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, depending on how that all works out, that wouldn't be great either. I mean, you know, I like the new quarterback, the Frosh. I like Jonah Coleman. I like their receivers. I do think Washington has some weapons, but I don't think they're deep enough yet to probably beat Louisville.
I agree, and I believe in Jeff Brom, man.
Yeah.
I really just think he, at this point, you know, Jed Fish has done a great job. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a good coach, but Jeff Brom, from what I've seen and what you and I have experienced, obviously, over the years when he was at Purdue, I think he's a superior coach. I think he will scheme this game up beautifully and come out with the win. I think Jed Fish and Washington can put up a fight, but I trust Brom. I just do.
Yeah, dude, I'm with you. In Brom, we trust for sure. That guy, he will find a way to scheme guys open, whether they can get open by themselves or not.
Yep.
He gets the best out of his quarterbacks always, no matter who's playing. Like he's got Louisville rolling. He's been there a couple years now. So yeah, dude, I think that'll be a tough one. That's a tough matchup for Washington, I feel like.
Yeah.
This next line is straight up disrespectful. We have the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, also on New Year's Eve, featuring number 15 South Carolina and number 20 Illinois. And the line is currently South Carolina by 10. 10. How can you tell me that South Carolina, who struggled as much as they did, I know they're hot. I know they got hot to end the year, but there's a whole lot of time between now and that bowl game. You know, that hotness is not necessarily going to be reflected in how they're playing 3 weeks from now. And I just think with as good as Illinois was this year, to go 9-3 in the Big Ten with all of their losses to teams that won 7 games or more, and 2 of their losses to top 5, or I guess 6 teams. I just think it's disrespectful. I think the line should be like 3 points.
Yeah.
Not 10.
I agree. And look,
and I'm not even convinced that South Carolina should be favored. I don't know. I know their defensive line is great. I know they do some things really well.
Well, they've got a really
Illinois
good freshman quarterback. They've got that Sellers as quarterback who's looking really, really, really good.
He's really good.
Yeah.
Yes, he's really fast. He can run. But man, Brett Bielema.
Yeah.
Brett Bielema's Brett Bielema.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just, yeah, man, I don't think, like, I'm not saying Illinois necessarily wins that game, but that's going to be a football game. It's not going to be, I don't see them, unless it's a late cover, I don't see them losing by 2 scores.
Yeah. Well, I think too, the reason South Carolina is ranked again as high as they are is, number one, they're in the SEC. Number two, they have Shane Beamer as a head coach. And I think that definitely carries some weight. Beamer's a great coach. Don't get me wrong. But you and I, again, I think like with Brett Bielema, given this much time to prepare, I don't know, man.
Beamer's a good coach. His dad was a great coach.
That's true.
Beamer at this point, I wouldn't say he's a great coach yet. I would say he's a good coach.
All right.
But yeah. And then finally, we have January 3rd, the bowl we've all been waiting for. The Duke's Mayo Bowl, featuring Minnesota and Virginia Tech. The early line is Minnesota by 4.5, but I looked at Bill Connolly's SP Plus, and he has Virginia Tech favored by 2. I mean, it's his numbers. It's not his decision. It's just he plugs in the numbers and doopy-doop-doop.
Yeah,
that's what comes out. Huh. But I thought that seems weird to me because Virginia Tech can do some stuff. They got a nice running back. They got a mobile quarterback. They got whatever. They got some pieces. I got to go more in depth to know more about them. But,
yeah, same.
But this Minnesota team, man, has really played well. Really playing well right now. Was really playing well to end the year against, Penn State and against Wisconsin. So
plus PJ Fleck doesn't really lose bowl games. Let's just put it that way.
PJ Fleck has never lost a bowl game at Minnesota. Ever. He's been in 6 of them.
Yep.
Never lost one. Yep. So that is impressive. The last time PJ Fleck lost a bowl game was when he had Western Michigan in the Cotton Bowl and lost by a single score to Wisconsin.
Yep.
So yeah, PJ Fleck is really good at the postseason. He's good at pumping his team. So what we always say about bowl season is, I hear all the people say, but Mike and John, bowls don't mean anything and guys opt out. And so it doesn't blah, blah, blah. You know what? Guys opt out for both teams in a bowl game.
Yeah.
So it's your job to do 2 things if you're the coach. 1, convince the guys, everyone except for the first or second round guys, that it's worth it for them to play in the bowl game. You make it worth it to them. You pump them up. You get them motivated. And then you get to see what your depth looks like too.
Yeah.
And so you see which coaches have been improving their depth in practice and which coaches have not been improving their depth. Which team's depth is ready to play when you do have those guys opt out. So I don't buy for a minute this idea that bowl games don't count or that they aren't really a reflection of how good the teams are. I don't buy that at all. Bowl games test program buy-in and they test coaching ability. So I don't believe in that at all. I think bowl season matters. I think it tells us a lot about these teams. I think it's really fun. So anyone who wants to piss in your Cheerios and tell you that bowl season isn't worth it, I disagree.
I'm with you, man. And I'm looking forward to all of these. And it's going to be a fun bowl season. And like we said, we'll cover these more in depth in the future. And, I gotta cut and run here.
Yep.
Because I got to get ready to head out to dinner. But this is fun, man. And I appreciate it. And we'll, we'll cover these more in depth. And I'll do my research on a lot of these teams.
Yeah, I'm excited to research some of these teams that I've only watched in passing all year.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be fun, man. I'm excited.
All right. I'm pumped too. So get ready for bowl season. And the most truly and playoff season, the most wonderful time of the year. And also congratulations to Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks once again. Big Ten champions, baby. Yep. Can't take it away from undefeated special season. Yep. All right. We'll see you all next time.